call the meeting of the Harwich Planning Board to order. Today is September 26, 2017. And as required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. Having said that, the first item on the agenda tonight is public hearing, PB 2017-23, Charles Corner et al. As owner, Eastwood Companies. Susan Ledoux as representative seeks approval of the use special permit for an attached accessory apartment pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich. Section 325-51H and Article 5 is set forth in Mass General Law 48, Section 9. The proposal seeks a one-bedroom, 896 square foot dwelling unit. The property is located at 161 Church Street, map 98, parcel H12 in the RR 6 Ponds and WR zoning district. Sue?
Yep, good evening. Susan Ledoux from Eastwood Companies, and I'm here with Preston Smith and Meredith Smith Connor. And Meredith and her husband Chuck will be living in the primary residence, and Mr. Smith and his wife will be living in the accessory apartment that's proposed, and I'm here representing them. And I'll just go through, I think you have my letter to the board, and I'll just go through those items. The proposed accessory apartment will be attached with the required common wall, and it is 896 square feet, and only one accessory apartment is proposed. And the proposed apartment will be held in common ownership with the principal use. And although it's not proposed at this time, only one of the principal dwelling or accessory apartment will be rented at any given time if the need arises. And the situation is that the Smiths and the Connors have separate homes now, but they thought it was best for the Smiths to live with them. I believe Mr. Smith's wife is in ill health, and they just thought it was best to have the family together in one living unit. So this is what they propose to do. And I believe the question, I can sort of address it quickly. We did apply for a building permit for a single family home, originally thinking they could use the same kitchen area, living area, and then they decided, you know, let's take a look at the accessory apartment special permit, because in the future maybe we will want to rent it out. So we were able to convert it was a family room area, and give them more of a kitchen and add a door, and it was easy enough to convert it to meet the requirements for the special permit. So that's why we are where we are. And again, the accessory apartment proposed net floor area will not exceed 1/2 of the net floor area of the principal dwelling. It's not more than 900 square feet, and again, it's 896 square feet. The proposed accessory apartment will have only one bedroom and has a kitchen and bathroom separate from the main dwelling. At least one off-street parking space shall be provided for the accessory dwelling unit, which it is. We have a 2-car garage, and we have an extra, if you can see it, it's on the site plan, it's a turnout or an extra space. And so the car for the Smiths can be easily accommodated. The subject lot meets the minimum lot area for a parcel to be eligible for a special permit to allow an accessory apartment. It is greater than the 40,000 square feet. If it's situated in the water resource, it's 68,772 square feet. The principal dwelling unit and accessory apartment will meet all the wastewater treatment requirements for the combined number of bedrooms. I believe the health department did not have any issues with the proposal. The proposed accessory apartment and the principal dwelling will not create traffic hazards of volume greater than the capacity of the streets affected. And it's basically a single-family home. The proposed use will not exceed the building or site coverage for the zoning district. The proposed house/apartment will meet the required building setbacks, and the building does. We've had a certified plan submitted, and it does meet the setbacks. And a certified copy of a special permit decision will be recorded. We totally agree with that. And the owners will live in at least one of the units on a year-round basis. We did ask for a waiver. I believe that 6 full-size house plans were required, and I believe the 11x17 size fully demonstrates what's proposed, and you should be able to read that easily. If not, I can provide you with a large set, but we've asked for a waiver of that requirement. And that's the presentation.
Holly?
So I'll just go through the comments from the other boards and departments and committees. I'm on page 2 of your staff report. The Conservation Department had no concerns, the Health Department had no concerns, the Building Department, none. Police Department, they said from a law enforcement public safety perspective, the police have no issue with the plan, but they just want to make sure that any light of sight issues do not occur where the driveway meets Church Street. And the fire department also had no concerns. And under my comments, all of the administrative and filing requirements have been met, and I recommend approval of the application.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions? Yeah.
Okay, I just have two questions. One, I noticed from the plan that that it's a common driveway with the property next door. Is there an easement for that common driveway over the property?
It is.
The adjacent property?
It's on record.
And
We approved it,
but-
didn't we?
You did. I think it
Yeah,
was
no, I
January.
think we did approve it, but
Yeah.
I guess my sort of follow-up question
Mhm.
to that is, does that easement allow for the additional living unit? Because if it doesn't,
Mhm.
you may be faced with a situation of an accusation of overburdening the easement,
Hmm.
which would restrict, your access.
Okay.
So
I'll take a look at the
if you
wording.
could take a look, and if it doesn't, I would recommend that you amend the easement
Okay.
to allow, and if you do need to amend the easement, if when you do that and get that recorded, if you could give a copy to Ally,
Sure.
okay? And then the only other question I have is that you had mentioned that originally when you got the building permit, you intended it to be sort of a single-family structure, even though there would be the same parties living in there. Are you intending to go back to the building department to see whether or not you need a revised
Yes.
building
Yeah.
permit, after the vote tonight?
Yeah. Well, I think if the vote is, if it's approved, then the special permit decision is issued. We have to go through the appeal period and record it, and then
Right.
I believe that's when I would submit it.
Yeah, I mean, the building department is aware that we are reviewing this application.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, it's safer to wait till the appeal period is over.
It's expired. We have
Okay.
a recorded decision of the
Yeah,
board.
no, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh,
Are there any, for the next door lot, are there
Yeah.
any plans for that one as well, or is that just is this just a separate situation?
We are constructing a single-family home on 151 now. It's a speculative home that's on the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's already built?
It's under construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that one was going to be an accessory also.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So your client owns both lots?
No, they only own 161. Eastward Company still retains the ownership of 151. It's on the market for sale.
Oh, so Eastwood owns this?
Yes,
And you sold this to these folks?
yes.
I got you. And you have a ruling from this board to allow you to go over this property with that?
We have a special permit, yes.
Yeah. And with respect to the Church Street, where your little driveway, it's not little, your driveway comes out onto Church Street.
Mhm.
Could you, and I don't need to change the decision, but open that, we have a comment from the police department, they're concerned about
Yeah.
line of sight.
Yeah, that was their concern, I believe, with the alternate access special permit, and we've taken care to make sure, if things need to be trimmed, we will be sure to keep that area open. I've pulled out of there several times, and I've not had an issue.
Yeah, I live right near there, Joe, and it's clear.
Good,
I
thank you.
think we did put it as a condition of the special permit at that time as well.
Mhm.
Any other questions? David? Okay. Anybody in the audience would like to speak? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Step right up to the mic.
I'm a neighbor. Hi, I'm Rosemary Shields. I just want to know what that big ditch next to the property is. We walk our dog by it all the time. But is that where those lines are? Is that the ditch?
The topography would say that you don't walk up and down that hill with the dog, I bet.
No, we walk all the time, yeah.
Up and down Church Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason, to go back for a little
Yeah.
history, the reason we came in January for the alternate access special permit is because the topography on those lots is so severe.
Yeah,
So putting the driveway for both lots where we put at the opening made the most sense. Basically for safety reasons more than, and we didn't want to take down all the trees on both
Right.
lots, just to be able to get to the house sites.
right. But, so, I mean, so there's this, what do you call that?
Swale. It'd be a swale.
Chasm.
A chasm, the chasm, yeah, it's big. And that's so you could have the driveway there.
Yeah, well, we had to grade it so that it wasn't so
Okay.
severe off of the driveway, so that's
Okay.
why you see the grading.
Okay, and so,
Yeah.
and so that's all like,
It's not paved or anything, but.
that's all safe and everything. I mean, it's terraced and
Right.
trees and
Have
whatever.
Plantings and a berm, and we're,
Okay.
yeah, we
'Cause
are
it-
ensuring that any residents or anyone that access the property, that they will be safe driving to
Okay.
and from the homes.
'Cause, yeah,
Yeah,
it's startling when you go by.
yeah, yeah.
Step right up.
I'm Janet McCroskey. I live around the corner. I see now there are two very large houses that have been built by the Eastwood companies. I'm wondering which of those two houses the apartment is going to be attached to?
If you, it's the one on the right,
It's this
Is
one.
apartment on the right?
yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
this one, do you see it?
They're very large houses. But
They're
they've
very
already,
large
they've,
lots,
al-
ma'am.
houses, so they've already been zoned. It's okay as far as you're concerned.
Oh, yes.
Correct, yeah.
One lot's an acre and a half, and what's the other one?
It's acre and a half, and the other one is, it's a little less than that. It's more than an acre, but less than an acre and a half. Yeah,
All right,
they-
so the apartment, Rosemary, you can help me, is where?
Here. They're just, that's the
Yeah.
apartment. The one with an apartment.
Is part of the house, so it's already on to the footprint of the house. It's not gonna be in addition to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other questions from the board? Joe, would you like to close the public hearing?
Sure, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson to close the public hearing. Any questions? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
move to adopt the following findings of fact. One, the parcel is in the RR and WR zoning district. Two, the apartment unit is not greater than 900 square feet, being 896 plus or minus square feet. Three, it is the owner's intent to occupy both units, with the apartment serving as the primary residence for parents. Four, minimum requirements have been met for setback, area, and bulk. Five, the driveway will provide sufficient off-street parking, which meets the minimum requirements. Six, the application as submitted does not adversely affect local traffic or create traffic hazards.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That'd be carried unanimously, or by everyone here.
Move to approve with conditions the use special permit and waivers pursuant to 400-6 waiver of rules and regulations requested for the attached accessory apartment based on the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich with the above findings and following conditions. One, the owner shall maintain occupancy in one of the units as required by town code. Two, at least one of the off-street parking spaces shall be provided for the accessory dwelling unit. Three, a special permit decision shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. 4, any change to the plan shall be subject to further planning board review.
Second.
Moved by Mr. McFarland, seconded by Mr. Harris. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Where's the boss? We don't see him
Go
anymore.
right ahead. 30?
14?
14 days.
I think it's 14 days. Or is it I think it's, I'm sorry, it's 20. It's from 20 from when the decision is filed with the town clerk, and we have 14 days to file the decision with town clerk. Yep. If you have any other questions, you can come or give me a call tomorrow. I do out there.
Okay. Second item on the agenda, new business. Approval not required, subdivision approval not required. TD 2017-24, Aaron and Deborah Ringus, owners, seek endorsement of a re-subdivision of 2 lots set forth in Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81K through GG. The parcels are identified as 204 and 0 Oak Street, map 70, parcels L2 and L3, respectively shown on the plan entitled Approval Not Required of Land, prepared by Terry Warner, PLS, dated August 29, 2017. The parcels are in the RM zoning district. Terry?
Good evening. My name is Aaron Gingras. I am the owner of the property, and I'm seeking your endorsement on my plan.
Okay. Ally?
Okay, so in the comments received from other departments, I'm on page 1 of the staff report. Engineering surveying had no comments, conservation had no comments, health said that no variances to Title V will be allowed for new construction. And I just gave you on your seat comments from the fire department, and they stated that they have no issues with access for the parcels in question. Other than that, it meets the requirements for an A&R. Lots 1 and 2 shown on the plan meet the minimum frontage requirements of 150 feet. Lot 1 shown on the plan of Aaron's Way, which is a gravel road, and it provides safe and adequate access, and that's what the fire department has attested to. Lot 2 shown on the plan fronts a public way. And that's really all the comments that I have. If anyone has any other questions, though, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any members of the board have any questions? Jim?
Okay, this really isn't a question related just to this application. I had talked to Ally earlier today with the fact that when we approve A&Rs, what we're really doing is we're making a statement that there is safe and adequate access. And, based on my comment to Ally today, she has contacted the fire department and been able to verify that the fire department has no problem. So I am satisfied in this case that, based solely on the fire department's determination, that there is safe and adequate access to this, to both parcels. However, in the future, I would like to get comments from both the police and the fire before we proceed on the vote on A&Rs.
That's completely fine. I will definitely do that.
Thank you, Ellie. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay. Any other, Alan, do you have a question?
Just a side note, owners unknown, bordering.
Unknown.
Always interesting.
That's a big family in Harwich, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Till we make a move, and then they
Yeah.
come out of the woodwork. What are you gonna put on the lot? I think you.
House.
Oh, you're gonna build a house on the lot? On lot 2, or on both lots?
I'm gonna put a house on the lot. Basically, I'm taking the line and straightening it out. So I'm not increasing the amount of lots. The lot, I'm gonna build on the lot that is 40,000 square feet, which is right next to my house right now, and I'm downsizing the house.
I see it, yeah.
I'm basically just downsizing the house and gonna move next door.
And you have no plans for lot 2 at this point?
At this point in time, I have no plans, no.
But it would have to be residential?
It is residential.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay. Are there any questions? No? From the big crowd that we have tonight? Having no further questions, nothing from the board. Joe?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody, so that meets the, we needed 5 votes, and it met it. We needed,
Yeah, no, you're right. There's just no public hearing,
oh,
but
sorry.
it's okay.
It's just a public meeting.
Yeah, so scratch that.
Well, we closed the non-existent public
Yeah.
hearing, so.
That's all.
Move to adopt the findings that such modification, adding to, taking away from, or changing the size and shape of lots in such a manner does not to leave any lot so affected without required frontage. And said plan does not constitute a subdivision as the way shown on a plan, therefore approved and endorsed in accordance with the subdivision control law, namely Oak Street and Aaron's Way, and said way provides safe and adequate access.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried by everyone. Unanimously.
Move to endorse the A&R plan entitled Plan of Land prepared for Aaron T. Gingras and Deborah J. Gingras by Terry A. Warner, PLS, dated August 29th, 2017, and last revived September 5th, 2017.
Second?
Again, moved by Mr. McFarland, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
ever so much.
Mr. Chairman, would
Yes?
you like to sign the maps now or after?
Might as well sign them now.
Okay.
Mr. Green wants to go home and celebrate.
Black pen?
have black.
You don't want to stick around for the next one for the recreational
Actually, my
marijuana
wife
bylaw?
is bringing me
With all that
guapos from, so. it's
That'd be a
gonna
good cash crop besides
Thank
the
you.
cranberries, wouldn't it?
What's that?
Marijuana.
No. I have 6 children and 6 grandchildren. They should just leave that alone.
Want me to date it?
Jeez.
Do you want me to date it?
Oh, if you want, that would be great. Otherwise, I can.
26th.
Yeah. I'm afraid I missed the wrong year. Okay.
While everyone's signing, I just want to let you know the next item on the agenda. We do have the minutes in the packet for 3:28 and 4:13. We're catching up on our backlog, but the minutes for 9:12 are not in the packet.
Still in process.
No.
Okay.
Could do 2 every meeting.
I know. I know.
Very good.
Want to move the minutes?
The next item on the agenda are the minutes for 3/28/17 and 4/13/17.
Move to adopt the minutes of April 13, 2017, and March 28th, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McFarland and seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Abstain.
Abstained.
I wasn't here.
David is abstaining from the meeting he wasn't here at. Okay?
You weren't at either one? You weren't at either?
The next item on the agenda is old business,
According to
the sale of recreational marijuana bylaw.
That's his pen.
Oh.
We get a lot of pens like that, you know? Ally?
Okay, so the last time we had discussed this, the Board of Selectmen had voted to ban the sale of recreational marijuana in town. And they gave it to the planning board to review the bylaw for it. So this is the bylaw that was given us by our town attorneys. It basically just outlaws marijuana establishments at the beginning of the zoning bylaw. It says, I'm on the third paragraph, all types of non-medical marijuana establishments as defined in the code, including marijuana cultivators, independent testing laboratories, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other types of licensed marijuana-related businesses shall be prohibited within the town of Harwich. So that's the wording that we received from the attorney. So our next step would be to set a public hearing for this so the public can come and discuss this with us if they so choose. And the earliest we could do it is our November 14th meeting. So if the board agrees to this wording and language, I can set the hearing for it and begin the process.
So if we vote on this tonight, start the process,
Correct.
and we'll have a public hearing on November 12th.
Correct.
14th.
14th.
November
Yeah,
14th, sorry.
14th.
Okay.
You all, okay.
Jim?
Well, I would just like to make a motion that we authorize Ally to, based on the wording that was presented to us, proceed with establishing a public hearing on November 14th, where this ordinance can be reviewed with the public and the public can make any comments with regard to it.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Atkinson. You've got that?
Yep.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Joseph, I'm sure you do. Nothing. You agree with the Attorney General?
I do. More importantly, I agree with
The concept?
the Harwich Police.
Okay, there's no further discussion, so we will move to,
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor
yeah,
to authorize Ally to
yeah.
proceed with establishing a public hearing
been
on
moved and
November
seconded, so
14th, and it's been seconded. So if there's no discussion, then we just need to have a vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Oh, that was difficult. The next item on the agenda, the marijuana moratorium draft bylaw.
So this is to extend the existing marijuana moratorium, like we discussed at the last meeting, to December 31st, 2018, and that was also recommended, agreed upon by the Board of Selectmen. So I'm, again, just following through, and I think it should be on the same public hearing, so it should be November 14th as well.
So you don't want to vote on it now, we have to have the public hearing.
We have to go through the process so that we can go to town meeting with it.
Move to place it on the public hearing
Second.
of November, whatever it was.
November 14th.
14th, yeah.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded to place that on the agenda for our meeting on November 14th. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays. Carried unanimously. That was quicker than I thought. Village Commercial Overlay District. Jim?
Okay, yeah, what I would like to suggest on this one, Ally has provided us with a draft zoning ordinance that basically adjusts the village overlay district to make it mandatory within the area of Harwichport as opposed to voluntary, as we discovered it was as we went through the issues with Cumberland Farms. This ordinance was developed jointly between David Spitz and myself before David left as planner. We think it accomplishes that objective. What I think is appropriate would be that the members of this board who just received this in their packet, this week, review this between now and the next meeting, and come back to the next planning board meeting with any comments that they may have on this draft before we decide how to proceed further.
Okay, is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Okay, and I don't think we need any motion.
I don't think we
for
need a
that.
motion, no.
So, Ally, the only thing is you just need to get this on the agenda
Yep,
for the
I'll have
next.
it on the next one.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then, if that's the case, then we might be able to get that to the November, could we get that, Ally, to the
Yep,
November,
or it will be the end of, or the October meeting.
or the end of October meeting?
Yep.
Okay, okay,
You mean for the public hearing?
yes.
No, for the Village Commercial Overlay District,
Yeah,
the
no, I think-
revision?
I'm talking about trying to
I
get,
was talking about the public hearing. I'll tell you, the one thing I would be concerned about is, I think the public hearings with regard to the
Marijuana.
restriction on marijuana is so important that I wouldn't want to sort of put too much
on that agenda.
on that agenda, and I think we do have time to potentially have a public hearing on this in
Yeah.
December.
Yeah, we're starting the process early, and we have more than enough time to do the Village Commercial Overlay hearing in a few months. But I think it's wise that we all look at it, really review it, and if there's any comments or if the board has any concerns, then we can fully discuss it and hash it out. But I think the marijuana ones are kind of,
So
this is what we've been given, so.
we prefer that be held.
This
I
all
would
is over
prefer
to town
that to
council.
be held separately from the hearings on marijuana.
I agree.
But I don't think we have a few months, because I think basically on the calendar, we need to be prepared by January to submit what we want on the warrants. Is that correct,
That's
Ally?
true, but the that's true, but from my recollection, last year, we had a public hearing for the moratorium for marijuana, recreational marijuana in February, so I think the hearing, regardless, yes, we should,
Right,
yes.
I think you're correct, Ally, that the hearing
Yeah,
can be
If
held
it can be held, but we
after
should
it
know.
goes on the
Yeah.
warrant, but I think strategically, I think we're in better shape if we have the hearing before it even goes on the warrant.
That allows you plenty of time to get out in the community and sell it.
I agree.
Right, and it also allows us time, if there is opposition to it, for us to understand that before we go through the process of getting it on the warrant.
I agree, yes, but I agree that I don't think it's wise to have it the same public
So-
hearing.
So perhaps the meeting that will be around Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Yeah, or the first meeting in December.
December.
Okay. All right. Okay, that would be good, and that's good. So the next item on the agenda is ADA non-compliant sidewalks, and I suspect that's what you've been patiently waiting for us to get to. Step right up to the table.
Well, I have nothing to do with sidewalks. I'm Jerry Beltis, Traffic Safety Committee, and this is another member, Jerry Scannell. Ally and I and Mr. Carafelli and Jerry met on Monday morning to come up with a policy for crosswalks, because there wasn't one, and I thought there could be one. So Mr. Carafelli came up with some samples from other towns, Brookline and Concord.
Yep.
And we looked at those, and Ally had a great list of suggestions, and we pulled those together. And she's gonna work on that when she has free time, no rush.
As long as it's done by next Tuesday, right?
Yeah, no, not really. To try and come up with some sort of a guidelines. There's been requests for sidewalks, crosswalks, and it's now the big push is ADA compliance. When the police department was built, the developer put ADA compliant on one side and didn't do it on the other side.
Well, that was, that was
Which
the
was
west side.
which was Linda's favorite complaint.
Yes, and we addressed that, and it's now corrected. And I was researching crosswalks and ADA compliance with a gentleman in the state Architectural Review Board, I believe it was. And he sent me some information, and come to find out that if you put a crosswalk in, it has to be done on both sides. So if a developer's putting something in, you people are aware now that the developer has to do it on both sides. It's going to add to the cost, but that's part of the business. So we're working on that. There's crosswalks all over town that are not ADA compliant. And the crosswalk out here in Town Hall, you step up and you go over a curb. The ramp coming in is not ADA compliant. So there's a lot to be done for crosswalks. You're talking about sidewalks here. Sidewalks, I know very little about that. I know that there's a certain width that the state wants, and then there's a federal. Link was talking about doing some work down on Lowell County Road and bringing those up to compliance. So, but the Bank Street from here down to 28 is not compliant. Most of the sidewalks aren't. And somebody was mentioning Linda, I spoke with her. Some of the things that she would like to see done is repair what we have. There's one over here on Main Street between, I think it's South Street and the center of town here, that has a dip in it. It fills up with water all the time. So sidewalks, talking to Link Hooper, are usually expensive. And I guess you have some funds being held by the...
We do. I'd like to...
We have a sidewalk fund.
I'd like to tell you that there's $500,000 in it, but I think it's closer to 60,000.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that
I
range.
don't know what the answer is for sidewalks, because there's as many opinions are, and there are answers.
Well, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, that was a sideway fund, but that can just as easily do ADA compliance, can't it, Joe?
I would think so. How we got it, you might be interested, is as developers over the years submitted a development plan, they sought a waiver of a sidewalk in the development. And if we granted such a waiver, they contributed to the sidewalk plan. So that's how that money got built up in there. That's where it came from. And it's also why we don't have sidewalks in a lot of our small developments.
And that's reasonable, but
Yeah.
the cost of a sidewalk being so high, the developer's getting away with a lot of stuff. So I don't know how they figure the cost for the money that comes to the town in lieu of, but I'd like to see that cost be at least
We assessed the cost, did we?
We determined what the cost of a sidewalk was, and that was what went into the fund.
The way we did it is we took,
Town engineer.
By foot.
we took by lineal foot for ADA compliant size sidewalks. It took lineal or square foot, whatever the number was that was current for that point in time. So this number has gone up for whatever it is. I think the last time we got a significant amount of money for JZ Way up off Queen Anne Road.
Yeah, and I don't know what the developer done on 39 he's building. I don't know if he plans on putting sidewalks in or if he's gonna, kick into the fund as well. I think that cost should be at least 2/3 of the actual cost if it isn't the actual cost.
Go ahead.
I remember one discussion where the developer asked not to have to put sidewalk in, and we had some estimates. I'm not sure if they're from the town engineer or what the source was. What I don't remember is if they differentiated between the cost of a sidewalk and an ADA compliant sidewalk.
At the time, I think we asked for the number, and the developer said he could put it in considerably cheaper, but he was also a contractor, and he had to pay what the town engineer used as his estimate for the cost of actual installation. So that's what the number is.
That could be
now.
revisited to figure out a fair way of doing it to the developer and the town doesn't get beat up. So,
That's fair enough. And I think what we don't get very many of them, and I think what we tend to do now is we tend to have the town engineer tell us what it costs to do it at that point in time. That's what we ask for. David?
Was there any stipulation in those decisions as to what the sidewalk fund could be used for?
I don't think so.
No limitations?
We just call the sidewalk fund.
Right.
Yeah, that's all we did. So what's the name of your committee?
Traffic Safety Committee,
And your name, sir?
Jerry Beltis, Beltis. TIS.
And how many people have you got on your committee?
The committee is now 3 citizens, and we have a representative from the police department, from the highway department, and then Bob Carafelli.
And who's the 3 citizens?
Myself, Linda Sabula, and Jerry Scannell. Linda's in Western Mass visiting a relative, newborn relative, so.
Okay, Ally, you have,
So the reason why I added this to the board's agenda tonight is because I had a member of the Traffic Safety Committee come to my office to talk about our priority for ADA non-compliant sidewalks, and she had requested that I recommend to the board that we give
we
that
hand off-
priority to the Traffic Safety Committee.
well, and I think that's a good idea, and, you know.
I don't.
Larry, let me just ask a question on that. The issue, the discussion of the term priority, how does that jive with what was passed at town meeting, indicating that for funds to be spent out of this, the determination has to be made by the planning board?
That's correct. If we wanted to
Ends up
spend
back here
the
anyway.
money, for sidewalks, the planning board has to make the determination to spend
So I'm not
it.
sure that we can delegate that responsibility, because I think by authorizing funds, we are at least ad hoc establishing priorities. And I don't think we can delegate that authority to another committee without it being approved by town meeting.
Well,
Could they
I-
come back and give us recommendations?
They can
Yeah, we'll
give us
work with you all you
recommendations.
want.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not a
Oh,
problem.
yes, certainly they can give us recommendations, yes.
I don't think that the Traffic Safety Committee can, because of the wording in that article, could spend the funds.
Yeah.
But I think that the member who came to me really wants to continue working on these with the Traffic Safety Committee. And I can understand how that priority fits with traffic safety. So if the planning board agrees we could work, jointly on it, and if they have any recommendations to us, such as they'd want to use some funds out of the sidewalk fund, then at that point they can
Yeah.
make the recommendation.
And I think that's what's completely appropriate, is that the Traffic Safety Committee do the studying, and if they want, if they set their own priorities and they want to use funds out of this fund that was established by town meeting, then they can certainly come to us and, and make the recommendation that we authorize the funding for it.
The meeting we had on Monday, we were talking about different items going through and on setting the guidelines for the crosswalks. And one of the things we have is we have many that are non-compliant. And Ally's working now to try and get something going on and get some money for a grant so the state will kick in money to the cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth to make these all compliant. So we put in the guidelines to repair or bring up to code crosswalks as funds become available or time, So Link has some money, and he did the repair over at the police station out of his budget. So I don't know what kind of money he has budgeted for crosswalks, bringing them up to compliance. I don't know what he has for money bringing sidewalks up for repair and compliance. I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and,
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Someplace, is there a list of every sidewalk in the town?
No, not that I'm aware of. I took a tour on Google Maps today and started counting crosswalks. And I went to the places that I've known I've seen them.
That's what I meant, crosswalks, I didn't mean sidewalks.
Yeah. Approximately 45 the town of Harwich owns throughout town. And then there's 19 on Route 28, which the state owns.
Oh, I see, okay.
And trying to figure out with Link as to a crosswalk crossing, let's say, Bank Street, going east to west. Is that a town-owned crosswalk, or is that a state? And Link says he's been doing the repair on them as he recalls. but it comes within the right-of-way of the state's highway, so they're the ones that should be doing the maintenance on those.
Is there any chance that if Link is doing the work, that they can maybe build a state like they do for plowing the
Didn't
streets?
even broach that subject with them. You know, anybody can ask them, I can mention it to him, but, you know, I don't know how he figures what he does and where he does it. I know that he had painted some down in Harwich Port with the green paint that was done by the town, but I don't know what the state does. There's ADA and what is it, MU?
Yeah, MUID.
TCD, AFG
yeah.
guidelines. There's state and federal guidelines for crosswalks and what they have to meet. So it's quite strict. We had a request for a crosswalk, and I guess this gentleman down on Victory Lane and Lower County Road wanted a crosswalk there, and it finally came to me this spring, and I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, I said, sorry, we can't do it because it doesn't meet ADA requirements. We're taking you from a side street and then over a curb, and it's gonna cost roughly $3,000 each side to do ADA compliance if there's a granite curb on both sides. Another gentleman wanted one over by Burger King, not Burger King, Dairy Queen, and there's no sidewalk on the south side of 28, so it would be taking people and putting them in the crosswalk.
To a swamp.
Well, there's a wide shoulder there, but we have to be conscious of putting us in a liable position that the town has to, if we put a crosswalk in, is there something for people to go to?
Crosswalk to nowhere.
Yeah, there's one right here on Sisson that crosses at South Street, and it crosses from the elementary school side and goes to somebody's lawn. And we're thinking about having that removed. It's just not a good idea to have these things.
David?
In my past life, I had a lot to do with the Access Board in Washington, and when they rewrote the ADAG, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act architectural guidelines, which aren't guidelines, they're actually a rule, regulation. There are disability rights groups that go around the country. They especially focus on hospitals, doctors' offices, malls, restaurants, things like that, to identify owners that have not brought their building into compliance. This is also factored by a reasonable accommodation section in the law that prevents people from spending all of their money just to comply with ADA when it would essentially bankrupt them. So I suggest that we do a little research to find out how this has been addressed in other jurisdictions to make sure we don't reinvent the wheel.
What being addressed? Sidewalks, crosswalks?
Dealing with sidewalks, you know, what is the town required to do versus what the town elects to do on its own, and to make sure what we do is done in compliance with the guidelines, rather than putting a lot of work in it and finding out that we missed some small provision and cause a lot of distress as a result. So, you know, this is really no place for volunteers just to simply read it and think they're doing the right thing. We probably ought to have some professional.
Well, that's when I went to the State Architectural Review Board for the crosswalk down on Lower County Road and spoke with the gentleman there. And Ally went to
A conference.
conference up in Sandwich, what was that, springtime, summertime?
Yeah, it was before summer, yeah.
And they're looking to have the towns upgraded. And speaking to this gentleman at the review board, he said that if you touch a crosswalk, you gotta bring it up to guidelines.
Exactly.
So that means when you paint it.
Paint
So
is
if you-
cheap, the granite's a little more expensive? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go to repair a sidewalk, does that mean we have to bring it up to standards? So now we repair 400 feet of sidewalk, bring it up to standards, and the rest of the sidewalk isn't? Or do you have to go the full length? And then if you want to put a sidewalk in that's standards, now you have to widen it, and now the neighbors are going to be upset because you're taking away their front lawn or their favorite tree.
Or what they think is their front lawn.
Well, that's exactly it.
and-
I would question whether or not painting the sidewalk constitutes an act that requires the entire crosswalk to be brought up to current requirements.
That's what I learned from the,
I would,
I can check on
there's gotta
that.
be a common sense rule here too, you know, so.
Well, as an example, and I won't take a lot of time on this, but the city of Seattle had lovely brick sidewalks, like a good part of Boston does, and they were sued they were sued because the noise of the wheelchairs going over the wire-cut bricks makes the thumpity-thumpity-thump sound. As a result, Seattle is under court order to redo all of those sidewalks back to concrete, and it's
There you go.
literally, it's an enormous amount of money, and Boston's been fighting that. That's happened to them in a couple of places too, so they've had to replace brick sidewalks with concrete sidewalks. So you're absolutely correct, you've got to be really careful. So we've got to be careful with our brick sidewalks here in town.
Well, I don't know what the answer is on sidewalks. If, we can try and work on it and see where we could spend the money, whether it's on crosswalks or sidewalks, see what Link has in his budget and,
A real can of worms.
sorry?
It's a real can of worms.
Yes. And the sidewalks on 137, when he redid 137, I've noticed a lot of people using them.
I can understand that. And you know, I think as Jim said, the idea that you're gonna look it over and then recommend to us, I think that's a good solution to it.
I need for somebody to find out if money is just for sidewalks or it can be used for crosswalk. So if that money is available, whatever fund it is, then,
I don't think there's any restriction on it. I remember when we set the fund up, because we started to build that money up a little bit, and we just established a sidewalk fund. I don't even think we went to town meeting. I think we just made a motion to this board.
And
Joe,
it-
we went to town meeting
Once.
last spring.
Right.
we went to
Last
town,
For the
spring,
revolving
We went
fund.
to town meeting to authorize that.
The revolving
Because we
fund.
got so,
Right,
nothing was happening with it. so
we had 12
I
years.
remember now, yep.
right.
It had to be renewed. It was done the first year and then it wasn't renewed after that. So
Correct.
now it's in effect.
well, I will
How
look.
much is in there, Ellie?
I think it's $50,000. It's not that, it's not, it wouldn't be what it costs to put in a sidewalk.
So
But-
there is a,
Yeah.
I was looking online, there's a Federal Highway Administration Transportation Alternative Program grant. So they did and there's money that they can allocate. They pay for 80% of the construction costs.
What was it called again?
Federal Highway Administration's Transportation Alternatives Program. Tyler, Texas got close to 7.2 miles of ADA compliant sidewalks at a cost of about 1.6 million.
Not cheap. 7 miles and how many?
That was what the grant paid,
The grant paid that much.
grant paid that much.
It
So it was
would've cost
actually
more.
another 20% on top of that, so we're probably looking close to 2 million.
Okay, so
The town is also looking to lengthen the sidewalks in Harwich Port to include the Witchmere and Saquatucket Harbor. And that's been on the wish list for a while. I don't think the town should touch that at all, let the state work on that, but I don't know whether your work on the crosswalks, Ally, the grant there, if we use the money there, or is that the proper places?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's sidewalks or crosswalks or accessibility or what.
They try to do that thing from Harwich Port all the way to Saquatucket, which I think is a great idea, but a couple of those folks, that great big house that faces Witchmere Harbor has a white fence around it.
Robert Hours.
Next
No,
to-
no,
next
that's
to
Robert
Harbor-
Hours on the other side of the
Next
street.
to Harbor Road, is it? I think it's Harbor Road.
I think so, yeah. Has he got a little surprise coming in, they put those sidewalks in?
I don't know the right of
A
way.
lot of people don't realize that, they see the road and they think that's,
there's a difference, there's a difference between the carriageway, that's the hard stuff you drive on, and the right-of-way, because oftentimes it's a 12 or 15-foot boulevard that you're busy cutting it and planting flowers there, but it's not yours.
And you'll hear the screaming on Lower County Road when that starts to happen.
No, I understand that. And Chatham's right now being sued because they took Stage Harbor Road, it wasn't a town road, and they took it at town meeting without having hearings on it. Now they want to put sidewalks there, and they're saying they didn't have the proper procedure to take the road and make it a town road. So the can of worms is huge.
Having said,
Good night.
Thank you.
thank you. So you continue on with your work, and you're more than welcome to give Ally a report every quarter or whatever you think appropriate. And if you have a recommendation, please send it to us, and
Okay, I'll come up
we'll
with
put
some
it on the
ideas.
agenda and act on it.
If you want to come back in with your people, then you should do that.
I know everyone's busy, so we'll try and little bites at a time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you ever so much for coming in. Okay. Having said that, briefings and reports.
Capital outlay is up and running. We're meeting every week for the next 6 weeks or something. Madam Secretary? Tuesday. In other words, we're now getting requests from the various departments. And I'm told that the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, oh, he's gone, that the
Step outside.
chairman of the Board of Selectmen is suggesting there should be no capital outlay this year because of what's already on the boards with the East Harwich Fire and so forth. But in any event, I would just, for whatever it's worth, comment that Chris makes this, it was a project for us when we first started out. And then Chris makes it, he just makes it a lot easier. He gets all the requests in from the departments, he analyzes them, gives us a recommendation. It just makes our job a heck of a lot easier, it really does. And faster. I mean, we can process whatever comes in.
Okay, Jim.
Likewise, the Community Preservation Committee is up and beginning their yearly process with regard to accepting applications. We had our required public hearing a few weeks ago. A number of proposed projects were at least listed in that hearing. Mainly, Chris showed up and gave a list of the projects that the town is interested in. The committee will be accepting applications. My sense is through the end of this month, but I think we may be a little bit liberal in holding that date due to the fact that our public hearing was a little bit later this year than usual due to an issue with regard to the posting of the public hearing.
Who's the chairman now?
Our chairman, Dave Nixon.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know when that date might be, or is it just a
I mean, I think originally it was supposed to be October 1st.
Yeah.
And there has been no official change in that date. And nobody has officially requested, a change in the date. So I think officially it's still October 1st.
Okay.
We will then be reviewing the applications. The next meeting will actually be the same night as the planning board meeting on October 14th. But at that time, I think there will be just sort of a discussion of what applications have been submitted. There has been discussion about potentially assigning various members of the committee to assist some of the applicants in preparing their presentations. And then we will probably discuss the schedule for reviewing the applications through the end of the year.
Can you tell us how much you got?
That, unfortunately, I know the chairman is working to find out exactly how much. There has been various, sort of evaluations as to how much is available. Personally, I don't remember the numbers, Joe.
Christ, give those two ladies their $500, will you?
Probably
Anita and the library lady. so they can store their old records or whatever the heck they wanna do with it.
Well, the issue there is that they are requesting that under historic resources, and nobody has made the determination that those records are historic resources.
Just as an update, it did go to Historic Commission on September 20th, and they did vote that it was to support the application.
Right, and that will help the application greatly.
Isn't our lady here the chairman of that? group?
She is, but she couldn't make it today.
Okay.
Yeah, but she is the chairman, you're correct.
No, I mean, some of the problems that we had in a lot of that was that there were questions about, what is a historic resource and who makes that determination? And the Community Preservation Committee is now the one to make that determination in the town of Harwich. The committee that Ally mentioned, I think, is the proper one to make that determination. And if they have made that determination, then I think the Community Preservation Committee should go by their recommendation as to what is and what is not a historic resource.
Is your recent past chairman still on that committee?
No.
Any other reports?
So I'll give a,
Oh, you've got a report?
just a quick one. So I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting last night to discuss the accessory apartment bylaw. And it was my understanding last night that they want us to relook at it, but I don't have any more information at this time. I just wanted to make everyone aware that that is what happened.
Hey, do you
Michael,
know why, Ally?
Why, what?
do you want us to
Why
look
they
at the
want
accessory
to look
apartment
at it?
bylaw?
Yes.
Why?
I'm sorry, I was just giving them an update of what happened last night.
We want to make it less cumbersome for people. So the $575,000 charge seems exorbitant. I don't have all the information that Julie Kavanaugh had in front of her last night, but Julie had quite a list of what the criteria is inside of the current bylaw. And I think Commissioner Kukunis spoke about looking at pre-existing, not changing or adding anything to a property, but pre-existing dwellings and separating the two rather than have, correct me if I'm
No,
saying
you're right, you're correct.
So rather than having the bylaw encompass adding a new building, taking an existing home.
As a special permit, or not a special permit, he was
And,
saying.
and as a matter of interest, we had our last meeting when Leo was there, we talked about that and said that we would prefer, it would look, it seemed to us that if the applicant came in and spoke to Ally, we'd let her make a recommendation as to whether we'd waive it or not. So.
Fee. Because
The fee.
it sounded heavy to us too.
I think it goes beyond the fee, and I think if I'm representing Julie correctly, I think it goes into a lot of the criteria that's involved in the current bylaw as well. I mean, isn't that?
That's what she was
So,
mentioning.
Given all the things that they have to comply with and the cumbersome requirements, and also to look at not necessarily having it be to add a dwelling to your property or add an apartment or add another building, but if you already have a home that you can make a basement apartment in, distinguishing the difference between the two.
Mike, do you know what the issues were that Julie had?
I don't want to represent her 100%.
Okay.
I think what we did was we talked about Chris and Ally creating a memo and sending it to the board with those,
Oh, okay, because, I mean, because we did have the hearing.
Am I right about that, Ally?
So yes, I spoke with Chris this morning a little bit more
Okay.
about it. And Charlene and I are going to kind of take a look at it again.
Okay.
But I would welcome a memo, just so, I'm very clear on what.
I think that conversation was going to be between administration and Ally
Okay,
with the concerns, and Julie was going to send her concerns.
Okay, that's great.
okay, fine.
And then revisit it. And I know you had the hearing. I was at the hearing until I had to come join the picnic.
Right, yeah, no, I remember that now.
So I didn't get a chance to sit through the whole thing, but I think the One Cape Summit really outlined, and a lot of communities are working on this accessory use bylaw change. And it's really to address not weekend rentals, not week rentals, not 2-week rentals, but it's really to address 6-month or a year rentals, so that our workforce can afford to be in a
basement.
In many instances, it's affordable housing, although we're not calling it that.
There was an interesting, Amy from Conservation, they talked about the amount of applications, how many more applications they're getting. And I think that they've streamlined their process and made it a less cumbersome process, and they're getting a lot more applications. Because I think.
Applications for,
For conservation to comply, basically.
I see.
And I think to your comment at that public hearing that I did hear, you don't see that many.
Right.
And I think that anyone probably understands that if somebody has a basement they can rent out, they're probably already renting it out, we just don't know about it. So if we
Probably
do
right.
streamline this and make it, maybe we can get a more accurate reflection of
Okay.
what's happening in town.
People don't want to report it because they don't want to get hit with the assessment.
We just talked downstairs with the Housing Authority about the Housing Trust. So obviously, housing is a topic right now that we're talking about and the whole county's talking about because people can't afford to live here. So our workforce is leaving, the young people are leaving, and I think people are fleeing because they can't afford to live here. So we're trying to address something affordable that makes sense, that people aren't gonna just Airbnb for weeks at a time.
We went through a period, Michael, 10 years ago, maybe, where we had a great number of applications from Howardsport, mostly 28 to the water, houses all down in there. Seemed like we had one every week.
Yep.
And we addressed them all, whatever, tried to grant it if we could.
I thought the comments from Leo actually about, oh, I'm sorry. I thought the comments from Leo last night about the separating it from adding a dwelling or adding an addition to do this versus something that you already had and redoing it seemed to make a lot of sense to me. So if,
We had one tonight.
right,
Yeah.
if we had a senior that didn't need their whole house anymore, couldn't afford their whole house anymore, and they could potentially divide it, it makes sense for us to make the process as less cumbersome, I guess.
Yeah, so that would be, Leo was saying it would be a permitted use. If it was, the accessory apartment was in the existing single-family dwelling. But if it was a detached structure, it would still be a special permit that would go through the planning board. That was his comments, and I think he also made those at our meeting last
He
time,
did.
so.
So if you run into a roadblock with the memo or
That-
communication with Julie,
that's-
let me
yeah.
know.
Okay, sounds good.
Were there any concerns about the area, the 900 square foot maximum, or off-site parking space, anything like that?
I don't, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was my understanding that it was mostly about having the new structure look like the existing structure. It was along those lines. That was my understanding.
And we didn't get into the depth of the
We
conversation
didn't
about
at all.
parking spots or, it was more, I think, of a reaction to your meeting and having it been a priority of both of ours and moving it forward.
Okay, yeah, throw it back in your lap, Ally. We're good at that.
Thanks, Larry.
Right. Thank you.
Having said that,
Haley.
there's no other briefings, but Marie, this is your last night? And you're retiring fully?
Yes.
Are you taking a cruise too?
He's available if you want to pay for it.
Do it out of the sidewalk fund.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But thank you ever so much. We appreciate that, and I'm sure Ally is looking forward to taking minutes again.
No. We're looking actively for replacements, but it will be hard to replace you, Murray.
Yes, the minutes have worked out very nicely, thank you. We were complimented this spring on the minutes.
I'm sorry.
We were complimented on the minutes this spring. I was.
I lose her twice. She also was the capital outlay person. And fine.
And
Oh,
historic. And historic. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm still working on the historic backlog before Friday.
Well, now, if you ever want to, you feel free to come back and just take notes for the fun of it if you want. But at any rate, thank you very much on behalf of the board. I appreciate that, and you've done a great job. Thank you. No, any other further business before the board?
Motion the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded and thirded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.